Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind address the theme, crossing new frontiers to conquer today's challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine.
Who invented the internet? A discovery or an invention is like the moon. It has two parts, the visible part and the hidden part. For that reason, I am well known, but I am not known well. I'm called a father of the internet because I'm the only father of the internet that invented a new internet. The new internet that I invented was a new global network of processors. Processors that encircled a globe is akin to tiny computers in inverted commas around the earth. I was the first person to theorize and to discover how to solve the toughest problems arising in supercomputing and solve them across that new internet that is a global network of processors that encircled a globe. An invention is something new, such as the massively parallel supercomputer. Prior to my discovery that occurred on the 4th of July 1989, the massively parallel supercomputer was not ranked as the fastest supercomputer in the world. My discovery of practical parallel processing changed the course of the computer from computing only within one processor that was not a member of an ensemble of processors to synchronously communicating and simultaneously computing across millions upon millions of tightly coupled processors that shared nothing between each other. I discovered something out of nothing. I broke a scientific dogma when I discovered that there is no limit to the speed up of the parallel supercomputer. The inventor of the parallel supercomputer is the first person to discover an ensemble of processors and to use it to make the impossible to compute possible to compute. I invented the supercomputer as an internet. The new grand challenge is how to invent the internet as a supercomputer. Back in 1974, the year I began to program supercomputers, parallel processing was scorned as a beautiful theory that lacked experimental confirmation. A supercomputer occupies the space of a soccer field. The modern supercomputer is a tool that enables the mind to go where the eyes cannot see. Back in 1989, I was in the news headlines because I solved the grand challenge problem of computing. I was the first person to figure out how to harness the supercomputing power of a million processors, with each processor akin to a tiny computer. It was a grand challenge problem because asking a person to become the first programmer of that first massively parallel supercomputer was like asking a man who had never climbed a mountain to climb Mount Everest. I was the first massively parallel processing supercomputer scientist to record the fastest speed in computing. To record the fastest recorded supercomputer speeds and to record them across a new internet that demanded that I visualize my emails as exploding across my new internet. I visualize emails as exploding like bullets out of my eyes. I was asked to describe the Philip Emeagwali formula for inventing the fastest supercomputer that then US President Bill Clinton referred to in his White House speech of August 26, 2000. Back in 1989, the vector processing supercomputer lost its practical merit because it became obsolete and it no longer underpins the fastest computer or supercomputer. The starting point of my contribution to the development of the world's fastest computer was the science fiction story about 64,000 human computers communicating and computing together and doing both to solve the grand challenge mathematical problem of extreme scale weather forecasting, and do so by mathematically reformulating that tough problem as 64 binary thousand initial boundary value problems. I am the extreme scale computational mathematician that invented the Philip Emeagwali formula that then US President Bill Clinton spoke about. The Philip Emeagwali formula was how I reformulated a grand challenge problem of mathematical and computational physics and reformulated it from a mathematical model on my blackboard to 64 binary thousand computational models that I parallel processed and executed across as many motherboards or processors or computers. I was in the news headlines because I invented practical parallel processing. That invention occurred on the 4th of July 1989 and occurred across a new internet that was outlined by 2 raised to power 16 commodity processors that I simultaneously harnessed and that encircled a globe as a global network of processors, and that encircled that globe in the 16th dimensional mathematical space, and that encircled that globe in the manner the internet that is also a global network of computers encircled planet Earth.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.